and welcome to Global News Today, bringing you exclusive interviews with leading experts every weekday here on Al Arabiya News. I'm Tom Burges Watson, and on today's program, we continue our coverage of the first 100 days of the second Trump presidency with a special focus on immigration policy. We'll be discussing that with a panel of guest experts. Hello and welcome to the program. Now, just after President Donald Trump marked his 100th day in office for his second term, we've been hearing from the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's been weighing in on the subject of immigration, saying the United States is actively working with other countries to take in, quote, the most despicable human beings, including, he said, perverts, pedophiles and child rapists, all part of what he called an effort to keep America safe again.
We have gone to countries all over the world and said, hey, you want good relations with the United States, you need to take back your people that are here illegally. And we've had historic cooperation. Beyond that, and I say this unapologetically, we are actively searching for other countries to take people from third countries. So we are actively, not just El Salvador, we are working with other countries to say, we want to send you some of the most despicable human beings to your countries. Will you do that as a favor to us? And the further away from America, the better, so they can't come back across the border. I'm not apologetic about it. We are doing that. The president was elected to keep America safe and to get rid of a bunch of perverts and pedophiles and child rapists out of our country.
The US Secretary of State speaking there alongside President Donald Trump. Well, immigration policies aren't just targeting criminals. Marco Rubio also said the United States will be more selective about who gets a student visa. Let's take a look.
Here's something else we've done. We stopped giving student visas to people who are coming here to burn down our universities and take over libraries and harass people. Why are we giving student visas to people who are coming here to create disruption? And we've taken away the student visas of people that are coming here to do that. It's simple. If you're coming to America to start riots, we're not going to give you, we're going to take away your student visa. And by the way, every country in the world that I travel, 14 countries in 14 weeks, you know what they all say to me? Yes, that's what we would do too.
Well, let's get more now. We can speak to Abraham George, the chairman of the Republican Party in Texas, who joins us now from Austin. Thank you so much for being with us. All of this week, we've been taking a close look at President Trump's first 100 days in office in the second administration. Lots has been done. There's been some criticism, some confusion. But immigration seems to be one area where even President Trump's opponents think he's excelled. Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. I mean, we have the lowest number of illegal border crossings in our history, about 70 years now. So this has been one of the most successful things that he's done so far. Yeah.
Okay. And of course, Texas very much on the border. It is a border state. You've got U.S. troops there patrolling. Just tell us what the situation is on the border. I mean, when were you last there, and what did you see?
So about 2 weeks ago, and I was there about 10 months ago, and I can tell you huge difference between what we saw in the past. We had about 17 to 22,000 people coming in at one point during the Biden administration. Then we now have somewhere between 70 to 80 people in a day coming up. So the border is very secure. The Americans are very happy about it, both the Republicans and Democrats and people who does not have anything to do with politics and don't want to be part of politics. Everyone's happy about the border security that we finally got.
Okay, so a very different situation. Obviously, the troops are there, but overall, how would you say the Trump administration has done this? How have they managed to change the situation so fast?
Well, it's very simple messaging that if you come to the United States illegally, you will be deported. You will be apprehended and processed. In the past, that was not the case. We just had a wide open border and nobody cared. I mean, White House was literally bringing in people and busing them into the inner parts of the United States in the past. So Biden administration did, it was intentional. There was no way that he can, or that administration can now claim that, hey, we just had a lot of people come in. Right now, President Trump basically said, if you come here, we're going to deport you. It's very simple. Come here the right way, the wrong way, we will get you out.
And President Trump says he's only getting started. He's only just getting started. We've only had 100 days. And as you say, he's been extremely aggressive when it comes to immigration policy. What do you think he's got in store for the next few hundred days?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot more deportation as far as the immigration part of it concerned, because we are looking at, we've had a little over 22 million people come over to the United States during the last administration. And that needs to stop, and it did. And now we are at a point that we are sending those people back who came here the wrong way, and people like gang members, people who are criminals, who some of the countries intentionally let out so they can leave their country and come to ours. So we are going to be extremely aggressive when it comes to immigration policies in the next 100 days too.
But according to statistics, the Obama administration and even the Biden administration deported more people during the same period than the Trump administration has done. Why do you think he's lagging behind them?
Well, we are going through the process. What happened in the last administration is we've had so much people come in. A lot of border patrol agents quit. They went and found other jobs. Now we're beefing up our personnel in those agencies along with doing the work. So at this point, our main focus is finding the most craziest criminals first and send them back, because first thing is the protection and the security of American people and the homeland. So they're more focused on who do they need to target. So if you have committed a violent crime, you're on the list to leave in the next 100 days too. So that's the main reason why we are now picking and choosing, because we just need to secure our communities first. So we're getting all the criminals out first.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a criminal and you get deported, you might end up in El Salvador. You might also end up in Rwanda, because that's another new initiative that is under discussion at the moment. What's the thinking behind sending people not to US prisons, but to prisons in faraway countries?
Just don't show up. Come here the right way. If you come here the wrong way, we will send you to El Salvador, or we will kick you out.
Okay, and what about if you make a mistake? And it appears, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, in the case of that Maryland resident, and I'm talking about Kilma Abrego Garcia, who was sent to El Salvador a couple of months ago. I mean, should he have been deported, do you think?
Out of the 21 million people, when we deport someone, if you come here the wrong way, you're not making a mistake. You are intentionally breaking the American law. And at that point, the American people have the right to ask you to leave. And CBP-1, which was a app that was created by Biden administration, was turned over, and we now ask people to leave by themselves without getting deported. So they have an option to leave. And if you choose not to do that, then our law enforcement will find you and kick you out. So it's not a mistake when you come here the wrong way. It's an intentional act.
Okay, but in the case of Abrego Garcia, I mean, people are accusing him of being in some dangerous gang called the MS-13. They're saying he's a dangerous criminal, yet he has never been charged with a crime. And he says he's not a gang member. I mean, does this look to you like a mistake? And I know it's only one case of many, but it's got so much profile and so much attention in the media. I'd love to get your views.
Well, how many other countries are taking in gang members and illegals?
Well, I don't know that he is a gang member.
Doesn't do that, right?
How do we know he is a gang member?
Illegal. He is an illegal, right? So when he is an illegal, he broke the laws of the United States, and he is in our homeland without permission. So it's a very simple thing to understand. We don't need to complicate it. If you come here the wrong way, we will kick you out. It's just very simple messaging.
Yeah, but there's a difference. There's a difference between
media and the rest of the nations can twist it and pin it however you want. But looking from an American standpoint, I'm an immigrant. I was not born and raised here. I came here the right way. When you come to this country the right way, the country welcomes you. You get opportunity to build a life here. That's, the American dream is available to everyone. But if you get here the wrong way, if you intentionally show up And this is not like 200 years ago when people were brought here as slaves. This is people asking and paying money to drug cartels to get here. And when you do that, the American people have the right to ask you to leave. And when you don't do that, we have the right to kick you out.
Sure, but there's a difference between being deported and landing yourself in a hardened prison in El Salvador full of gang members, especially when you're not one and you haven't got a criminal record.
That according to the media, right?
No, it's according to the law, it's according to El Salvador. They've got no record of him being in any gangs.
No, the El Salvador did not say that. The media keep pushing that idea and the talking points. El Salvador's president clearly stated that we are working to figure out more about it. But the question is, why are you here the wrong way? Why did you come here illegally? Why did you pay drug cartels and coyotes to get here? If you did that, it's an intentional act on breaking our law. And we have the right to kick you out. And at that point, you made your bed that we can remove you and send you somewhere else that you may not like. So don't show up. Or if you're already here, leave.
Okay, I mean, let's look at some of the case studies, because I mean, there aren't that many examples of major countries in the world deporting people to other countries. But the British have tried something similar. They tried a Rwanda deportation scheme, and it didn't really work out, and they had to shelve it. Do you think this is a lot more complicated than perhaps it looks at first glance? And obviously it has to be got right in order for it to get public trust and public support.
American people are trusting President Trump on it, so he's got the trust and the support from the public. What other countries say about the United States at this point, we really don't care about it, because it's all about the security of our communities. We have numerous cases of kids getting raped and murdered by these illegal gang members in the past. Many of them here in the state of Texas. And, parents are upset. They're scared to have their kids go and play in the parks because these animals are walking around and kidnapping them and raping them. So it comes down to a point where American people are asked, they're asking him to do it. The president won because one of the main reasons is because of this.
What about students who are deported for protesting? For example, as we've seen in recent months, protests in universities across the United States, people, with banners, flags, taking to the streets because of the war in Gaza. They haven't committed a crime. Is America telling the world that students who come to America can no longer take part in protests?
They're not regular students. They're not American citizens. They don't have the First Amendment right like everyone else. They are here to study, not to incite violence inside our homeland.
But is protesting inciting violence or taking part in a protest?
It's not just protesting. They were burning down things, and they were inciting violence. In campuses, we have protests in campuses all the time. This was different. So when you do that, when you come to United States from any nation, it doesn't matter where you're coming from, and your goal and your visa is to come here to study whatever you come here to study for, then that's what you're supposed to do. And if you get a regular visa afterwards, which most students do, become citizens and all of that, it's great. We want people to come here the right way. We want people to come to we want the best and the brightest to be here. But if you come here and incite violence and create problems in our campuses and start having hateful protests against Americans, yeah, we do want to deport you, and we did.
Okay, because when we think of the United States and we think of, the 1960s, the 70s, protests against the war in Vietnam, I mean, that seems to be part of the sort of the US student experience, and students do tend to protest in universities all around the world. But you're saying that if they're foreign, they can't take part.
Yep, that's what we're saying.
Okay. Let's talk about birthright citizenship. That's something that President Trump has talked about halting. Again, it's possibly easier said than done. Is that something you'd like to see halted?
I think it's something the American people are asking him to do. I know the courts have gotten involved in that. We will see how this come out. I think the president and the White House and the American people are expecting to have a end to that. But it's up to the Congress to do that. It's up to the American people to finally make that decision. So we'll see what the court says, and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, just looking back at these, whatever it's been, 102 days, we've agreed that, immigration is the one area where supporters and opponents think President Trump has done his best so far. Is there anything you've seen out of this administration that you haven't liked?
I think he's doing what American people have asked him to do. Other countries have taken advantage of the United States for many years. So he's doing what finally we've got a president who actually going out and saying, okay, America first, and which is what his entire campaign was. We want to put America as a homeland first. Among, if you look at other administrations in the past, that was not the case all the time. I mean, I'm not criticizing every administrations every day. What I'm saying is there were days that American people are like, you're sending money to Ukraine, billions of dollars, and we have a hurricane here, and our people were not being helped by our own government. When the same week they were sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. So American people got tired of it and said, well, this is not working out for us. So, and this is one of the reasons why he was elected. And the Republicans got huge majority in every state this time, because Republicans were saying, hey, we got to take care of our people first. So he's doing what he's elected to do.
Sure, but Abraham, we speak to lots of Republicans, and we give everyone a chance to express their views from all different sides of the aisle in the United States. And even some of his strong supporters have said there are one or two things they're a little uncomfortable with, and one or two things they haven't appreciated too much these last 100 days. And you're saying he's got everything right.
I think he's doing great. I would love to see more deportations. I would love to see our economy bouncing back faster. He can always do better, right? But look at what he has done in the 100 days. It's just amazing. We haven't had this kind of administration in a very long time. Even Democrats agree to this, not just Republicans. Democrats are not. They're at this point, they're having a hard time finding things to complain about. So American people are happy with him, and I'm glad to see we finally have a president who actually puts America first.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it. Abraham George, chairman of the Republican Party in Texas. Thanks again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, President Donald Trump's first 100 days back in office have been defined by bold efforts to reshape the U.S. economy, which so far results indicate shrank in the first quarter of 2025, down 0.3% on an annual rate. Well, some analysts say this is due to the administration's new tariff plan, which forced some businesses to scramble to stockpile imports, while consumer spending also slowed down. Turning our eye to foreign policy and the war in Ukraine in particular, because President Donald Trump has signed a deal with Kyiv, granting the US access to some of the country's natural resources. Well, President Trump called it a win-win, while Ukraine's foreign minister praised it as an important milestone. Well, the agreement, published by Ukrainian officials, states that Ukraine won't have to repay the $350 billion in aid, which the president says the US provided during the war. Well, that was a condition that President Zelensky initially rejected. Well, we're going to be talking more about those two issues, the US economy and Ukraine, plus a whole lot more with regards to these first 100 days of the second Trump administration. Well, let's bring into the conversation Amanda Makki, a lawyer and Republican strategist who joins us from Florida. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Always a pleasure talking to you. 100 days in, what's your assessment of President Trump's overall performance?
Well, if you follow what he said on the campaign trail, it would be no surprise where we are at the end of 100 days. Mass record deportations, We have brought the numbers down from tens of thousands to single-digit thousands. Somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 are the number of border crossings that we have versus what we had under the Biden administration in December of 2024, which was closer to 30,000. So make no mistake, President Trump has made the signature piece of his focal point for the first 100 days, the border, and polling has rewarded him. It shows that Americans, independents, Democrats, and Republicans, by and large, show that as his biggest and greatest success that he's had in the first 100 days. But also look at woke culture, something, again, he talked about, trans, sports, biological males being placed into female sports. He still talks about that. To this day, when they were touting their 100 days of, achievements, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and those policies that have been eradicated in the government are something that he touts and believes is a major point of his administration as well, and something that he believes, again, is an 80-20 issue, if you will. 80% of the people are going to be very supportive, regardless of where and which party they stand in.
Okay, and obviously we heard President Trump on Tuesday night when he spoke in Michigan saying, I'm only just getting started. How much more would you like to see him do when it comes to tackling those DEI or woke issues, as you call them?
Well, I think that DEI goes hand in hand with what he is doing with Doge. And that was what Elon Musk, bringing in some all-stars that the government could never recruit. But someone like Elon Musk, bringing his weight and his backing, was able to get these significant people in government to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb and save the American taxpayers billions of dollars. This is one of those issues. I wouldn't even call it an 80-20 issue. I'd say it's a 90-10 issue, because who doesn't want to see efficiency in government? Every American should want to see efficiency in government. In my opinion, it's like term limits. We all want to see people matriculate out of the system. We don't want to see them there forever. And these are the types of things that President Trump has really pounced on. He's going to continue to do it. So if you ask my opinion of what do I think and what should he be doing, I think he should continue to do these things. I think the American people are rewarding him on those things, but never lose sight of the economy. I go back to what James Carville, who was Bill Clinton's presidential consultant in 1992, always said, it's about the economy, stupid.
It is about the economy, and we're going to be talking about that in a moment. And not all the numbers are all that great, but we'll come back to that. 100 days is a bit of an artificial deadline, isn't it? And a bit of an artificial milestone in the sense that it's actually quite difficult to have got anything major achieved by 100 days into a presidency. It's only 3 months. I think a lot of people struggle to achieve much in 3 months when it comes to fulfilling their goals. Have there been any disappointments, though, for you?
I can't think of anything that in particular I would say he's failed on this. But, the economy, because of tariffs and because of the fears of tariffs, people are worried, and that's understandable. And President Trump has said as much. It's going to be tough in the beginning. But I think that President Trump has made tariffs a signature part of his campaign. And again, it's something that I think he believes that we're actually winning on. We're having more people bring their businesses back to the United States who had taken it offshore, coming back to the United States, reinvesting in the United States. Toyota yesterday being mentioned as a great example, Apple computers. Those are the types of things that are really good. But in the short term, there is a little bit of pain. Interest rates are still high. The economy in certain parts of the country are still struggling. But when you look at things like FEMA, for example, basically emergency management and the disasters that happened in the wildfires in California and the flooding and the hurricanes in September and October on the East Coast of the United States, really President Trump has done such a better job spending billions in rebuilding these areas as opposed to what Joe Biden and his administration did. So I think Americans, by and large, are seeing good things come out of this administration. I think the economy is always just a tender point for people, and people will be complaining things are still expensive.
I mean, does it look to you like the US is on track for a recession? And if it is, do you think it's worth it in order to, perhaps as someone in President Trump's inner sanctum would say, to make the world trade sort of situation a bit more of a level playing field?
I don't see a recession. I live in Florida, and Florida's been a really tough place due to many factors. One of which being a lot of people moved here after COVID because it was a free state. And then people slowly realized just how expensive it was with insurance and those sorts of things. And then, of course, hurricanes, getting hit with hurricanes, really devastating hurricanes last year and years prior. So there are certain parts of the country that I think are going to be hit harder than others. But overall, the economy of the United States is strong. And I think the finances of this country are strong.
Okay, I mean, trade deals have been promised with dozens of countries, including China, I should add. So far, there haven't been any, have there?
Well, according to President Trump, as of last week, 70 plus countries had come when the announcement came on April 3rd. Of course, we had a 90-day pause after that. But President Trump believes that him moving forward with the, largesse of the United States, with having the money source of the United States purchasing from other countries like China and the likes, they came to the United States, I would say, hat in hand, saying, please, let's negotiate. And they're also mentioning that maybe even as early as today, there could be a deal, because China's hurting a lot more than we are, as the president said yesterday. It's without a doubt that within the next 5 to 7 weeks, it could become hard for us here in the United States. Hasn't happened yet. But at the same time, I think the president wants to negotiate. He wants to make deals. But he can't be held to an artificial timeline of, the first 100 days or within this time frame. He has to negotiate with these other countries. But the good news is that not only are American companies coming back to the United States, but foreign companies are now going to be manufacturing in the United States and bringing their investment dollars to the United States. And that's causing these other countries to say, we want to work a deal. And, let's go back to India last week when J.D. Vance and his family were there. Make no mistake, that was not, just good family portraits, because it certainly was with his Indian American wife and visiting places like the Taj Mahal. But really, I think it was to box China in and to say, we'll strike a deal with India. We'll work closely with India, and we'll push China aside if we have to. And again, just continuing to further isolate China. So they're really doing everything in their power to make sure that they get China to the table. And they're saying that as soon as today, there could possibly be a deal.
Okay, I mean, a lot for American consumers, the American public, to digest these last 100 days. And one of the pledges, of course, on the campaign trail was to bring down consumer prices, boost the economy. Just to wrap up this segment on the economy before we move on to another subject, how would you describe sentiment on Main Street?
I would say that by and large, Americans are doing fine. Interest rates are still high. I think the dream of home ownership is still a little tough for some people with interest rates being high, but President Trump has complained about that. He wants Powell to bring down interest rates so that people can buy homes. So there might have to be more infusion of programs through the government. Of course, they'd have to work through Congress to allow for those dollars to be injected into the economy, to allow people who are maybe at the lower end, maybe military, maybe first responders, teachers, focusing on certain groups to help them be able to own a home, because interest rates are higher than what, they were just 4 years ago when they were hovering around 2 to 3%. Now they're closer to 6 to 7. So that's tough. But by and large, I think that, going into the grocery store, you do feel a little bit of pain. You do. But in the first 100 days, I wouldn't hold any president to that, to say, well, within 100 days, the prices haven't dropped. So I think that people are being patient. People are waiting, but patience does wear out. So hopefully that price coming down of groceries, which I think are just the easiest basket of goods that people, worry the most about, like gas prices, they've come down by and large. But I think groceries still are a little bit of a tough point for Americans because those are things that people have to spend money on every week.
Right. Let's move on to foreign policy. And there's been a high profile, it would appear, departure from the inner sanctum of President Trump's administration, the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz leaving his post. That, I think, makes him the first senior figure to leave this second Trump administration. Don't know what your thoughts are. I mean, of course, we heard a lot about Mike Waltz in the context of that Signal group chat. I mean, does it look to you like he's been thrown under the bus, or is this a case of him leaving perhaps because he objects to the direction foreign policy is going?
I don't think it's that he objects to the direction the foreign policy is going. I don't think that's the case. I think it was just a distraction. It became a distraction. President Trump did a series of interviews. One was with ABC news correspondent Terry Moran this past Tuesday. And, you know, the subject keeps coming up, the Signalgate, the issues that have happened with that, and what it means for the Department of Defense. And if you're President Trump, you're very supportive of your military, your armed forces. He's been very supportive of Secretary Hegseth, who runs the Department of Defense. So I think maybe he just had to find the person who was at the head of all this, was the reason for all this. And I think it was just time to go. And when you lose confidence in someone, usually it's that person who says, it's time for me to go, because you don't want to be operating under this veil of insecurity in your boss, the president, feeling insecure about having you in that role. Mike Waltz is a very honorable man who's served this nation. He's a Green Beret. He certainly is talented and intelligent. But sometimes when mistakes like this happen, those things don't matter. It's just the perception of it, and it becomes a distraction. And the president, and I'm sure his staff, probably decided that that was the case. And here we are.
Okay, when it comes to foreign policy, I mean, two of the most striking images of these last 100 and so days have been one of President Trump and President Zelensky in the Oval Office, where they had that famous encounter. The other was Trump and Zelensky at the Vatican, having a sort of man-to-man conversation. I don't know if you agree with that. Perhaps you've got another image in mind. But, I mean, we haven't seen an end, have we, to the war in Gaza or the war in Ukraine. Both of those wars were supposed to be settled pretty quickly. That hasn't happened, has it?
It hasn't. But again, it's not a unilateral thing. President Trump, for being a Republican president, I always say he is truly a war dove when it comes to hawks and doves, as we call it in the United States. I mean, he does not want to engage in war. And that's something that he's made very clear. And to have a Republican in my lifetime, I've certainly not seen that of any Republican president. So he's someone who errs on the side of negotiations and diplomacy. And I think that when you have another person that you have to negotiate with, it is not on your timeline. So as much as he would have liked to have, in his words, have it done on day one, and I'm sure he did want that, the Zelensky encounter in February with Vice President Vance, the president, it did not go well. Certainly, Zelensky was very emotional. This is something that impacts him, his abilities, his country, and his countrymen. Those men and women who are fighting for his country, they need to have all the weapons, the artillery, and everything that they need. And that's what he needed from the president. And that meeting did not go well. But then in the Vatican, you see, to your point, a mano a mano. And hopefully, based on what we've seen in the last 24 hours with a minerals deal being struck, this is really important. It sends a message to Putin that the U.S. is behind Ukraine. And it also sends a message to the American people that we're not funding other people's wars. We will be remunerated for what we're doing to help other countries. We're not here to fight other people's wars. We will be justified in doing this because we will be, made whole, if you will. But we're not here to fight other people's wars. And President Trump again made that clear on the campaign trail.
Okay, we're coming to the end. I mean, there is this threat, obviously, that hung over the campaign trail during which President Trump said he was going to get back at those who he believes wronged him in some respect. I mean, what have we seen so far, and what more do you think there is to come?
Well, President Trump, unlike any other former president that I've ever seen, or really even politician that I've seen, really took a lot of slings and arrows in the 4 years that he was not in office. The time between 2020 and 2024 were just filled with cases that, in his view, were unjust. Interviews like with Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes, where they didn't even let him talk. They tried to debunk things that became fact in the end. And so I think he has an axe to grind. I think a lot of people would have that. So I think you may see more. I'm not really sure he's focused on that as much as people would like to say he's focused on that. I really think the president wants to leave behind a legacy, and things like a Ukraine deal and securing peace would be a lot more valuable for him than it would to go after people who right now, they don't matter to him. He's the president of the United States.
Okay, all the guests we've been speaking to this week, we've been asking them to give a little report card on President Trump's achievement. And so imagine yourself as a high school principal. If A is excellent, B is satisfactory, and C is must do better, what would you give President Trump on the economy?
I would give him an A minus.
A minus, okay. Immigration?
A plus.
Foreign policy?
A plus.
And government reform?
I didn't hear what you said.
Government reform?
Government reform?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that would receive the highest mark. If I had to rank them, that would be the highest.
Oh, so an A double plus, perhaps?
I didn't hear you.
I was asking if you perhaps give him an A double plus.
A double plus. If there's such a thing, yes, I would really say that he's taken on government transparency and efficiency like no one else, and been very fair to employees, government employees as well, many of whom who have taken out the buyout that they got to get paid through September and not have to work. They can look for other employment. So I think he's been very fair, and while finding billions in waste, fraud, and abuse to clean up the government, something politicians always promise but never deliver on, he has delivered on that.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Amanda Makki, lawyer and Republican strategist.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's get another opinion now on the first 100 days of the second Trump administration. We can speak to Angie Wong, Republican committee member, who joins us from Florida. Angie, always a pleasure talking to you. Just before we go into the details and the overall report card of President Trump, we've got this news just into us about the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, how he has resigned. What's happened there, do you think?
Yeah, this is just coming in, and multiple reports and sources now are confirming that Mike Waltz, former congressman and current national security advisor, is going to be stepping down. This follows weeks of something called what we call Signalgate, where a journalist was able to tap into a private Signal chat where very sensitive defense material was leaked out. So I guess President Trump was not very happy with him, and he never did anything to fix the issue. We had known that several of his deputies were recently fired in previous weeks, but Mike Waltz having to resign over this, that's the first big casualty of the Trump administration.
Yeah, fair to say he was pretty damaged. He's gone with a colleague, I think his deputy by the name of Alex Wong, if my memory serves me correctly. I mean, it just got to the point, I assume, that story wasn't going away, was it?
You know, that story went away for a second and it came back. So I guess more information had come out regarding this. Look, one of the first things that you learn in orientation, and especially him being a man from the military, you learn never to put out the mission, especially over text or any sort of communication. These are very basic things. The fact that that was sidestepped and he still went ahead and put out sensitive information in a group text that was then published by Atlantic Magazine, that's a big one, for especially if you're the national security advisor. So he's the first one that Trump did not save. And it's very sad because there's a new congressman who just took over his seat in Florida, and that's Randy Fine, who just won his special election just last month. So there's nothing for him to go back to.
How much of a setback, how much of a loss is he, do you think, to the Trump administration?
Well, I don't know. He didn't really show off that much work in the first 100 days. So it's not like there's a lot to tout for. But, you know, it is something I'm sure Trump and his advisors did not want to have to deal with. They wanted to show a unified force. They wanted to have a strong team, especially within the first 100 days. But right now, what we're seeing in the Trump administration and all over Washington are the metrics of Trump's first 100 days. And maybe what Mike Waltz didn't really come away with anything other than Signalgate. So he might be the first to fall. But, you know, I have to say, Pete Hegseth, our Secretary of Defense, he did something very similar twice. So I wonder if he's the next one to go. We don't know yet, but clearly new information had come out for Trump to have made this decision.
OK, let's pivot back to President Trump's 100 days, sort of in more general terms. What's your sort of overall assessment of his overall performance?
Overall, people are giving him an A+, although if you're not here in the U.S., it's kind of a mixed bag, right? So it depends on what side you're looking at. But here, stateside, you know, he's done very, very well with border security and also with national security. He's finishing building the wall between the U.S. and Mexico. He's brought back Remain in Mexico, where basically the illegal crossings have died down from hundreds of thousands per month to just a handful. So I think that's been measured very successfully, and Border Czar Tom Homan has done a fantastic job there. He's also doing the economic revival. Today, you have Vice President J.D. Vance heading over to a steel factory, a U.S. steel factory, and touting and praising U.S. steel manufacturing. So all these things are enlightening the American workers. There seems to be a promise that there's going to be more and more jobs being delivered and bringing industry back into the U.S. But if you're overseas and you are used to providing and doing supply chain for the U.S., well, it doesn't look so good. So maybe that wouldn't be an A+ there. On top of that, you know, overall, it's the American comeback, and it's a slow burn. President Trump has taken a couple of hits, especially with the tariffs and the rollout of that. But overall, Americans are really happy with him.
Yeah, I mean, he did seem to be saying when he spoke to some business leaders, I believe yesterday, you know, I do need a little bit more time. But he has got a negative quarter now under his belt. Q1, the US economy contracted, I mean, albeit very fractionally. I mean, do you think that's something that's going to be worrying people? Is that sort of sense of worry trickling down to Main Street?
Yeah, well, we're watching those numbers for sure, and there'll be other numbers that may not be as favorable as the summer travel season approaches, and we're seeing less and less tourism bookings here in the U.S. So those are all numbers. I'm wondering if he just enjoyed a great honeymoon period during the first 100 days, but now we're starting to see the cracks, and we've been seeing that with the numbers that are coming in. But, you know, that was expected, so to speak, because of the tariff announcement. It put the entire world on edge. Even now, there's uncertain markets right now. And, you know, I'm sure global business leaders want to know what's going on here, because every single day there's a new tariff announcement and people just are very uncertain. So if we could put some enlightenment to that and put some ease to that, I think the money flow would come back in and people would be happy with the stock market again. Yeah, so there's still stuff that needs to be done. I've long said that, campaign promises were made and kept, but now we have to slip him into good governance, and that is a completely different animal.
Okay. One of the things that President Trump wants to do is to make his tax cuts of 2017 made permanent. But he's got a tough job, hasn't he? Because on the one hand, he wants to cut taxes, but on the other hand, he wants to address the federal budget deficit. I mean, can the US actually afford massive tax cuts?
Well, and that is one of the pillars of what President Trump wants to do in his 4 years. He actually wants to eradicate income taxes, personal income taxes for the middle class. And that's what the tariffs are about. That's what deregulating a lot of our rules are about. And that's where, all of this comes to play, hopefully by the end of his term in 4 years. But there is a lot of mismessaging in regards to the tariffs, and a lot of countries are not playing ball with him. But I do expect India and for Japan to be making U.S. tariff trade announcements very, very soon. Just this week, the rare minerals deal was made with Ukraine, so that's going to be another big announcement. We're going to see the market react to that and hopefully jump up.
On the subject of Ukraine, a lot of attention, a lot of effort to try to crack this nut and get the two sides talking, try to broker peace. Hasn't happened, has it?
Not as easily as he said, right? During the campaign trail, he said he could close out this war within 24 hours. Clearly not. Clearly, anything with Putin, it's just going to take a while, right? So, but the U.S. did get a favorable deal for the rare earths mineral, which is really what I think President Trump wants. And it's good for American industries. It's the revitalization of American economies. We do need those rare earth minerals for our semiconductors, for all things electronic these days, and for our defense. So that was a great deal made. Now, again, Trump is a business guy, so to him, this is a win. Does it end the war? No, unfortunately, not yet. And I think that hopefully that is somewhere in the near future. But at the moment, I don't see how that ends unless the two parties, Russia and Ukraine, actually have a sit down and discuss how that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, in the last couple of weeks, Ukraine has done everything that the United States has asked it to do, and now it's signed this deal on its minerals and natural resources. It agreed to an unconditional ceasefire. It sort of has, and a lot of concessions have been made on Ukraine's behalf, like never joining NATO, conceding possibly some of its territory. Would you like to see President Trump perhaps do a little bit more to get some concessions from the Russian side?
Well, I think signing this signing this Ukraine deal with rare earth minerals, it's a message to Putin and to President Xi of China to say, look, we don't need you. We have our own resources now for all the materials that we need. And that helps overall with the geopolitics with Russia and China and others, because now that's a real playing card for the U.S. What does Ukraine get from this? Well, that's a good question, other than our military force and perhaps another blank check from Congress, which is really what Zelensky is looking for, more funding. But it is a great message to say to your adversaries, look, we don't need you, and we are going to start manufacturing. And now we have the materials and the goods to do so. So I think that's why the announcement was made yesterday, as soon as they possibly could put, ink to paper and sign it. I think that's going to help things along with hopefully resolving the Russo-Ukraine war.
Another major foreign policy issue that continues to hang over, well, the whole world really, is the ongoing situation in Gaza. And when President Trump came to office in January, there was, in fact, just before he returned to office, a ceasefire deal, which has now collapsed. So on that one, it looks like things have sort of gone backwards, haven't they, rather than make progress?
Yeah, I mean, the Middle East is going to go back and forth and back and forth. Ultimately, President Trump is standing with Israel and is standing with any position of that Netanyahu wants to have. And I think that is a really, really just touchy issue. It always has been across multiple presidencies. It's almost as if they don't want a resolution and they just want to push forward with two individual agendas that constantly conflict. So I don't even know if Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, a very, very smart man, President Trump, clearly he wants something to, he wants a resolution there. I don't even know if everyone in the world can put peace there anytime soon, because it's just, there's just too much friction. But, they're going to try to make some sort of deal, and I'm sure there's going to be some sort of peace meeting in the summer, because I know President Trump really, really wants this, and he wants to see this for his presidency and his legacy to bring some sort of resolution to the Middle East. We'll just have to see how that one plays out.
Okay, let's move on to another key feature of Trump 2.0, the Department of Government Efficiency. When it comes to slashing bureaucracy and the cost of government, I mean, are you pleased with the performance so far?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we've saved over $100 billion just by doing an audit. So having accountability of the government is always, always good. And we're now starting to see that states are doing it. No one's mandating the individual states to do what the federal government has done here in the U.S., but they see that this is actually really good for Americans, and they see it as really good for their own reelection efforts. So I think a lot of state governors have also asked for DOGE-like audits in their own states. Ultimately, Elon Musk had to step down. He has a day job, remember, but he's left a great legacy and a great team in place to continue all the DOGE efforts that needs to happen in the U.S. And we're going to find more and more savings. And ultimately, hopefully, what all this leads to is a permanent tax cut for middle-class working Americans. I think that is the ultimate goal here. So I am in full support of this. I hope that they can actually find more and more money and funds that we can cut that are no longer necessary and no longer beneficial to Americans, so that we can all enjoy lighter taxes. Who doesn't want that?
But one thing that Elon Musk hasn't done is achieve or identify those $2 trillion worth of costs in the federal budget and cut them. I mean, $160 billion is one thing, but $2 trillion is a very different number, isn't it?
Well, it's only been 100 days, and I've been told that this is just the appetizer. Wait for the main course to come around. So we'll see what happens with that. But $160 billion cut within 100 days. I mean, the math, it's not all there, but it's getting there. So look, we've got 4 years to look forward to and 4 years to do audits of. I think we're going to get to the $2 trillion. It's just going to take a little more time.
Okay, just with regards to Elon Musk more generally, I mean, obviously, as you say, he's got a day job, and he was only ever going to be there for 130 days. So he was always going to move on at some point. Do you think President Trump's going to miss having him around quite as much as he's been there? I mean, how valuable a presence do you think he's been?
Oh, Elon Musk has been absolutely amazing. He's done the American people a great service, and we thank him for it, because he doesn't mind exposing all the corruption that there is in Washington, D.C. and all across the U.S. and in our budgets. He was great at it. I think President Trump will keep him on as a senior advisor, and if nothing else, certainly a friend, and he's certainly a friend of America. But right now, unfortunately, we have groups here that are vandalizing, Teslas and blowing them up and setting them on fire. And that's not good for Elon Musk's bottom line or his shareholders. So he's got to get back to his day job, make sure that that stops right away. But I know the DOGE work will continue, and it will continue with or without Elon Musk. And I'm sure President Trump really does keep his advisory close to his heart. So I hope that that remains.
Okay, so he's moving on because he had to, and he was always going to. Mike Waltz is moving on. Well, we don't know quite why, but it's been announced that he is most likely moving on. What have you thought of the whole lineup, sort of overall, in this second Trump administration?
Yeah, no, it's always been really interesting because looking back at the first Trump administration, you see that, not a lot of people lasted there either. Most people only did about 1 to 2 years before they also had to retire or resign. We expected the next round and the next wave of the Trump administration to come forth, but I didn't think it was going to be this soon with Mike Waltz being the first casualty. But yeah, no, working with Trump is working with chaos. He loves a chaotic environment. He thrives in chaos because his opponent, they don't know what to do. So not a lot of people can work in that environment. And, if you've got thick skin, you may thrive too. I expect there's going to be other resignations coming, hopefully not this soon, but maybe after the summer. I know there's other people to cycle through, so to speak, people in the wings just waiting for a position. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. That's just Trump world for you. Outside of Washington, D.C., this is what his organizations look like.
Yeah, you mentioned the opposition. We heard Kamala Harris, the former US vice president, say her first words since her November election loss just 24 or so hours ago. She and, well, her party, frankly, they look a little bit like they're in the wilderness, don't they?
Well, she's coming out of hiding. Why? Probably because she's, positioning another run, whether another run for the White House or maybe for the governor's seat in California. We're not really sure. We were wondering what the Democrats were doing. They took a little break and now they're trying to regroup and find their leaders again. And a few people have emerged as, possible Democrat leaders and who the next wave of candidates will be. So she did have to come out and say something, but I still don't understand what she said because I listened to her speeches and it kind of hurts my ears sometimes because I try to decipher what she's actually talking about. It's hard. And I don't know if I think she will have political legs, obviously, because she's got great name ID. But I don't know if I can stomach another run for president with her in 2028. Maybe the governorship in California might suit better for her.
Okay, let's do what we've done with some of our other guests this week and wrap up by taking an in-depth look at President Trump and thinking of you as Principal Wong from a high school, grading a student, in this case President Trump. If A is excellent, B is satisfactory, C is must do better, what are we giving President Trump on the economy?
On the economy, it's going to be a B+ for me. There has been a lot of job stimulus. The economy is kind of coming back. We're starting to see grocery prices drop a little bit. Certainly our domestic gas prices they're now favorable again. But because of all the market uncertainty with the tariffs, no one knows which way to go. And our stock market's going up, down. We don't really know. So I think having some sort of stability there coming from the White House would be a great advantage for everybody. Right now, people just aren't buying because they don't know what President Trump's going to say tomorrow.
Okay, when it comes to immigration, what are you going to give the president?
Oh, absolutely, an A+++. I think Tom Homan has done a fantastic job. He's just got blinders on, just doing it. And ultimately, what that's going to result will be safer streets for all of us here. Now, Democrats are taking that message and misreporting that we're deporting American fathers and non-gang members, things like that. It's all false. It is certainly there to fearmonger. I'm here in Miami where there's a huge Latino community and everyone's scared because of the fake news that's coming out about how they're deporting Americans, and so much so that parents are not bringing their kids to school for the fear of being deported by ICE, because there's ICE buses all around. So I think that is the Democrat strategy for the midterms. I just wish they didn't have to do this because it's really affecting real lives.
Okay, when it comes to foreign policy, what do we give the president?
Oh, I'm not sure about this one. So far, I don't think foreign leaders know how to play with Trump very well. Trump is an American cowboy, and he's got the cowboy style of doing things. I think diplomacy and geopolitics may not be Trump's strong points. I think his advisors know how to do it. But again, you can't really cowboy your way into getting what you want, and certainly not with countries like Russia or China. So I think that could certainly use some improvement. So I'm going to give that a C.
Okay. All right. You've been very fair and very balanced. Thank you very much indeed. Angie Wong, Republican committee member from Florida. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tom.
Well, that is all we have time for on Global News today. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Be sure to join us tomorrow for a look back on some of the week's most exclusive interviews. Until then, bye-bye.